Actually move on to the Leinster Championship. Henry Shefflin against Derek Ling. They're both 44. I presume they played on underage teams together.
Presume so, yeah. Did Derek play underage? Actually,
I'm hoping that some of our viewers might have a quick answer on that one. If anyone, because
I'm not sure if he did.
Do you know, I was trying to look up some like minor panels and whatever. You know, the way you'd often find a match program from, 97 or whatever, to see if I could see them both in the same team. And I couldn't find anything. So that neither disproved or proved the point. But like they both know each other so well. I saw a picture from like, I think it was an extension of some commercial deal from 2009. And there was a photo call down in Nolan Park. And you had Henry Shefflin sitting down beside Derek Ling. Shefflin is there bouncing a ball, smiling from ear to ear. Ling is there, dour enough, and then there's Cody standing behind the two of them. But yeah, Ling against Shefflin this weekend. Who's it more odd for? It's probably more odd for Henry, obviously, but like he's used to coming up against Kilkenny now after last year.
Yeah, but not used to going back to Nolan Park. I think that adds a little bit of spice to it. It was one thing them playing in Salt Hill last year and even playing in Crow Park. But he's going back to Nolan Park against his own county, facing off against an old teammate on the line. A heap of old teammates, actually. Conor Phelan, Peter Parry, Michael Rice as well. And obviously Derek on the sideline. Then you have, he's managing against a load of guys that he's had great success with at club level in Nolan Park. His nephew Owen Cody as well. It's definitely way more weird for Shefflin. I don't think it'll be that weird for Ling at all. I just think the thing for Ling is this is the biggest game yet under his reign, and if they're able to get a result against Galway and Nolan Park, it'll put them really on the front foot for Leinster. I think that this is there's a couple of games to really look forward to this weekend, but this is definitely one of them, just for all the kind of fanfare and hoopla that'll be around it as well. I'd be expecting a fairly bumper crowd in there too. I think the last time they played there in a Leinster Championship game was that cracking game where Galway finished with 13 players. TJ finished with 2-11. Galway won by a point for their first ever championship win in Nolan Park, and then ended up dumped out of the Leinster Championship a couple of weeks later.
Richard Hogan says Derek didn't play underage for Kilkenny like Martin Comerford. Henry did play underage, says Cash is King. So how important is the venue here? I mean, remember 4 years ago, Galway came down here and they didn't have Joe Canning because obviously he was injured, and they gave an excellent performance and picked up a huge win. TJ Reid was unbelievable the same day. But 2019,
he got 7 from play as well, didn't he, the same day, I think.
Yeah, and I thought Jason Flynn was quite good that day in terms of setting up chances. But that was Galway's first win at Nolan Park in Championship for 70 years. Now, to be honest, how many times would they have played there in Championship?
Probably twice or 3 times.
Sometimes those stats are absolute nonsense in the world of the GAA. But that was a huge win. Do you reckon they can go down there and do it again? Look at it last year. 1 win each. Both were fairly, like the first day obviously was very dramatic, and there was the handshake between Cody and Shefflin and so on. It's a little bit like Thomas Tuchel and Anthony Conte, or Antonio Conte, not Anthony Conte.
Anthony, he's Irish now.
Yeah. And then there was the Leinster final when, as Shefflin kind of said himself after the game in the press conference, they basically didn't show up in the last 20 minutes. What way is this one going to go?
I'm still finding it hard enough to get a read on Galway. Galway should have been beaten Wexford by 6 points without Lee Chin and Damien Recht. Realistically, I think Henry has gone after this. You always say the half back line is a platform, but he's really loaded his half back line with Mannion, Dahi Burke, and Joseph Cooney, and probably maybe Fintan Burke to come in there. Now, I do think for the balance of the team, if you're putting Fintan Burke in wing back, I'd probably be pushing Joseph Cooney up a small bit, because I just think it balances the team a bit better. Probably play him either midfield or half forward. I think you might give you an option at half forward as well. They don't maybe have a hell of a lot of ball winners at wing forward, and he obviously played wing forward when they won the All-Ireland in 2017. I was impressed with Jack Grealish last weekend as well. Thought he did a very good job on Rory O'Connor. But they should have been winning that game the other day by what they did. And Evan Island won't be getting the space against Kilkenny that he got against Wexford. They just let him kind of roam around. And as I told you before, he got He got 6 of the best from me from play in a challenge game one day, and it was like with the challenge game for him the other day. He was just left kind of roam around. I think every one of them was off his left as well. It'll be way more tighter. It'll be way tighter. There'll just be a lot more pressure on him. But Galway had a fairly competitive game last weekend. It was very competitive, obviously. Kilkenny had a no contest last weekend, realistically, and I think they put 29 points up on Westmeath, only conceded 7, but to be very disappointed with butchering a couple of goal chances. Like, you would expect them to be hitting, 329, 429, hitting the back of the net. Saying that, Galway didn't hit the back of the net last weekend either, and they would have been, while I said their defence was good the other day, they were hit early with, the first goal. First goal wasn't great. Was McDonald in the square? He probably was. But they conceded 2 goals early. They bounced back well from it. But I wasn't blown away by Galway now last weekend, I have to say.
No, but they did recover from that. I mean, that's a fair dagger early on to concede a couple of goals, and still they didn't panic. And like, even if you go back to some of their league games, wasn't it against Clare when they went well behind early on? They stayed the course and they ended up winning the game fairly comfortably. Like, they were certainly the better team throughout that game. I feel like there's so much more in Brian Kincannon. We haven't seen it in the last year or two, and definitely injuries explain it to some degree. But there's more in him. There's probably more in Conor Whelan. We need to see a little bit more from Conor Cooney, and we need Evan Nyland to frank his form on a big occasion in somewhere like Nolan Park, where it's, the atmosphere is going to be brilliant there. I think it's going to be really, really good. So, like, just in terms of that more or less non-contest, if we can be harsh enough to call it that, last weekend, Kilkenny 29 points, Westmeath 7. God, I can't think the last time that a team scored just 7 points in a championship game, certainly at senior level. But like TJ Reid, there was 11 different scorers for Kilkenny, which is good from their point of view. I think they'd be somewhat surprised to not score a goal at all, but I'm imagining that if Westmeath are only scoring 7, that they're fairly defensively set up. Now, I haven't seen the game, just the highlights, but that would be what that would suggest to me. But often you see teams, they lose by double scores or triple scores. This isn't far off quadruple scores.
It's more.
7 4 is 28. It's more actually.
Yeah,
it's more actually. We're not mathematicians here, are we?
Great at your times tables. Mathematicians or mathematicians.
Mathematicians, I love. But TJ Reid, he scored 4 from play. Adrian Mullen scored 6. John Donnelly scored 4. I mean, John Donnelly, anytime I see him dropped from the Kilkenny team, I always wonder why, because he's such like a hard worker, a ball winner. He's a classy hurler.
He's brilliant hands. Brilliant. Yeah. Like, some of the best hands in the country.
Yeah. Like, part of me thinks that Galway can go down and win this game, but like, there is that whole thing that they seem to have the hex over Kilkenny in the last couple of years. There was, that back-to-back where Micheál Donoghue had those wins over Brian Cody as Galway manager. But it does feel like in the last couple of years, remember the 2020 Leinster final, the winter one, when Shane O'Neill was in charge and they played with the sweeper from the get-go, and you wondered, do they really need to? And they had Joseph Cooney full-back, more or less marking TJ Reid. And I think they got overly kind of fussed over what Kilkenny were doing rather than playing to their own strengths that day. And obviously they've lost some of the games in the meantime and won that one last year in Salt Hill with the contentious free. I'm kind of torn on this a little bit. I think Galway have the quality, but it depends on, do you go to Nolan Park and sort of freeze on that stage like Cork did in the league semi-final, or do you sort of do what you did in 2019 and just come out and hurl with abandon? And when I say that, I mean, you don't play setting up your team to contain totally the hosts. Like, obviously they'll have to have a particular man marker for TJ Reid and so on, but you go out there and you try and think, well, how as much as possible can we play to our own strengths?
Totally, yeah. I think the midfield battle would be very, very interesting. The last day, Kilkenny started Paddy Mullen and Dara Corker midfield, and it was Tom Monaghan and Ronan Glennon. Like, I wouldn't have Dara Corker down as a natural midfielder, number one. Just something quickly, actually, last weekend, the Shamrocks broke a record. They had 6 championship starters. There's never been more than that, or there's never been 6, I think, even from any club. I think the Fenians, Bennett's Bridge, and James Stevens all had 4, might have had 5 and a couple of subs, but 6 championship starters from the one club is an interesting one. I think that midfield battle will tell a lot. Will Conor Fogarty, who probably lost out based on the league final, will he come back in now? He's so reliable. maybe at this stage of the day, whether he has the legs to keep up with the with the Limericks of this world is one thing, but I think he's tailor made for this game in Nolan Park. Absolutely tailor made for it, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't come back in. Yeah, very hard to call this one, isn't it? Galway were hot and cold. They were decent in Salt Hill last year. They were atrocious in that Leinster final, really poor. They kind of limped over Cork in the quarter final and then delivered a brilliant display in the All Ireland semi final. Maybe you could say I'm sitting on the fence, but I think it could end up a draw, and I find it very hard to separate the two of them.
I find it very hard to listen to you say a draw. I think you're just too windy to call.
Why does a draw not happen in games from time to time? No,
it doesn't. Well, the odds are always against it anyway. No, but I think like Martin Keown didn't start last weekend. I could see him starting this game because they'll need that bit of physicality and the work rate that he brings. And like he's become quite a good finisher a lot of the time. Another point that I wanted to make relates to Kilkenny's confidence. Where is that at the moment? Because it must have taken a fair bit out of them to lose in the manner that they did in that league final. And from Henry Shefflin's point of view, if he's looking to win Leinster this year, which of course he is, this is a real chance to sort of strike a blow against Kilkenny's confidence even more so if they can win in Nolan Park.
Definitely. And he obviously won't be saying that or anything like that, but I'm sure he'd love to go back to Nolan Park and get a win. So you say it was a brilliant atmosphere there in 19 when they played, and it'll be. I'm not saying it's going to be anything like it, but kind of the atmosphere of 2013 when Tip and Kilkenny met in the qualifier. There's so many different subplots to this, shall we say. Should be a cracking game. Yeah, I'm finding it very hard to say. I don't know exactly what sort of Kilkenny we're going to get, but I would be expecting a bit of hellfire and brimstone after that league final no-show. And I hope in Galway back up last weekend a bit as well. Yeah, I think it'll be a draw. I think around 8-1 or so, you could do a lot worse.
Porter says, any quiz question this morning, Michael?
Maybe before the end of the show.
You just have to think of one first.
I have a couple here in emails. I just need to put them together as we're moving.
Okay, let's see. Next thing we have to move on to. So I'm going to go with a Galway win there. I think it's as good an opportunity for them. And look, both teams are going to get through anyway. But ultimately, I think Galway have a chance of winning this game.